this new moon in Taurus helps us focus our attention on the outcome we are after rather than the problems we are navigating. I thought that was kind of amazing. Hey, Carol. That is easier said than done, I think, a lot of the time. But how cool is it to think that those energies of support are available to us right now? Um, that idea that we can navigate issues, problems, difficulties, whether they are our own personal things that we're going through or the larger things that we are all going through, and focus on outcome and focus on where we want to be and what we want to happen. What do I want life to look like and feel like and be like a month down the road, a year down the road? It's not denial of the problem, it's shifting the problem so that, okay, I'm acknowledging here's the issue, here's the thing, and the energy that I'm going to pour into that is the energy of what I'm hoping will happen. I love that. And I'm going to definitely be noticing my thoughts and noticing the next thing that I wrote down, which is be mindful about how you talk about yourself, about events, about the future. So if you think about the words that we use are energy, we're pouring energy into life, into our lives. Megan says definitely have been focused on. I know, me too. It's hard not to focus on the problem, right? I mean, because the problem is the problem. Um, but this thing about the way that we talk to ourselves about ourselves and about events, that feels particularly sparkly to me. That feels really magical. Of the difference between if I'm talking about I have this problem, I have this problem, I have this problem, then that's the energy that I'm feeding. But if I'm talking about here's how I would like this problem to be resolved, or here's how it might be resolved, or here's what I think could happen, that's a different energy. It's a lighter energy, it's a more flowing energy. I'm a big believer that when we focus energy together, when we come together and focus energy and intention, we move things. We can speed up timelines. We can move situations and at least open the door to positive surprises and good changes. Um, I wrote kindness is in nourishment. Our words are nourishment. What do we want to feed? When we look at our long-term plans, I think this moon energy is giving us the opportunity to look at our long-term plans and how we want to fill our cups up going forward. Um, so I have three nieces, and they're all basically adults, and the youngest one is 18. And the youngest does aerial gymnastics, which is amazing. Like they wind themselves up in these big silks and then drop and do things like Cirque du Soleil kind of stuff. It's amazing. And I can't imagine having that kind of strength, that kind of physical strength. But last night was the senior show for their aerial gymnastics studio, and or it was the show, and then they recognize the seniors, and so my niece is one of the seniors, if that makes sense. So at the end of the show, basically, they brought the seniors out and gave them flowers and talked about them. And the thing that their coach said about them was they said a lot of things about them, but one of the things they said was that they were so nurturing and that they had really spent this year nurturing and mothering the younger students and taking care of them. And I know this about them, but it just really struck me like what a beautiful thing to say about someone that they are nurturing. And I think that quality is something that I could take more on for myself of how am I nurturing myself? How am I nourishing myself? How am I nurturing the other people in my life, in my community, in my work? Where am I? What am I pouring? And when am I pouring it? I just think that's an interesting and important thing to think about in this energy and all the time. So I've been thinking a lot about ideas of being rooted and ideas of home and ideas of community and what that means. On Saturday, we went to this bluegrass birding festival, and I got this shirt. This shirt is from the Forest School, which is it's like a weekly. I guess it's just, I guess it's mostly homeschooled kids who participate in it because they would be the ones available to participate in it. But it is literally a forest school. It's a school that takes place in the forest and immersing children in nature. And I just this is their shirt. I thought it was so cool. It's such a cool idea. But when I was thinking about this idea of community, because I bought a sticker from, I found this vendor that I loved called um, Red Oaks. No, Red Oaks is the forest school. Among the Oaks Herb Farm. And they had these stickers that said community is resistance. And I was thinking about that idea of community because to me, what we did on Saturday at the birding festival, like that's community because all of the vendors were independent businesses, nonprofits, people really working toward a mission. And going there gave me and Tracy the opportunity to talk to people, to engage with these vendors, to buy, I bought some herbal tea, and be a part of a community in that way. But the reason what I was thinking about was how sometimes when I hear people talk about community, I imagine being in a group. And I don't really like being in a group. That's not like my favorite thing. I get really overwhelmed being in a group. I am someone who likes to be alone. Like, when you see that image of the old woman with the long skirts living in the little stone cottage out in the middle of the woods, just walking around, talking to animals, doing her thing, like that looks so appealing to me. I hardly ever feel lonely. Um, I sometimes feel isolated, but I do okay alone, I guess is what I'm saying. And I think there are different ways of thinking about community and how we engage in community. That doesn't necessarily mean going and being in a big group of people all day. But we can have these other ways that we engage with one another and with the community at hand, like even the community of our homes or the communities of our own backyards. Um, I've been in community with my birds. That's been my big focus recently because of the crows and also our other birds. We feed a lot of birds. And so I did spend some time yesterday just sitting outside. I pretty much have to sit with Rocky all day. He's here. Um, he's a very anxious old man. Um, oh, he just looked up at me like, that's a terrible way to describe me. Um, but he likes for me to sit with him, and so I have a double-seated camping chair, like it's a camping sofa, and I set that up outside. I put him in that chair. He went to sleep. He took a long nap, and I just sat outside yesterday and listened to the birds and watched the birds and observed them. And it's really amazing. And I'll tell you how quickly you start to understand the way the different bird calls are, what the birds are saying, if they're calling about a predator, if they're happy, um, the patterns that it's their birds are fascinating. I don't know. I don't know what that's a sign of. Like I've moved into the phase of my life where I'm just watching birds, into birds. Mm. So I want to talk about fairies and elementals, and I have these cards. So I'll just tell you about the cards first. This is a deck called Fairy Magic. It is not an oracle deck. It is I probably designed for children. I think, and it promotes itself as storytelling cards. Join the what? Oh, join the club. Yeah, I did join the club, the bird club. Um, they're storytelling cards, and so I think that we could use them as journal writing prompts. We can use them as oracle cards. We can do whatever we want. I just wanted to show them to you, and if you would like for me to pull a card for you, let me know. I'll pull you a card. I'll show you the card, and I'll read you a little bit from the booklet, and then you can use that as a journal writing prompt if you wish, or you can use it as anything. I'm not gonna test you on your journal writing. You know, you can do it or not do it. But would anybody like a fairy magic card? Just let me know. Hmm, Carol. They're really big cards. Okay. All right. You have the fairy shield. I'm very discombobulated. I wish that one day you all would log on for one of these and I would be like so prepared and in control and it would be just like all sleek, but don't hold your breath on that. I think it's probably always going to be discombobulated. I got you, Megan. I'll do you next. Thank you. Um, Gosh, okay. I really need to get it together. The fairy shield, Carol. Keywords: warmth, courage, magical defense. I am the shield that protects against stealthy attacks. I am made of the alder tree, which stands with its roots in the water. Mm, that feels important. I can send back rain and bad weather to clear the way before you, keeping you warm and dry. Pretty cool. I'll show it to you one more time. These cards have like cute little details on them. All right, Megan. Oh, thank you, Carol. My discombobulated self. I feel like I need to like write a theme song for each of you so that when I'm pulling your card, I can sing your song. Thank you, Megan. Oh, Megan, your card is the spell of dancing. There's a little horseshoe there. Keywords: unending, invisible, and whirl. I am the spell that will make you dance until you drop. It begins with an itching in your toes, then a lifting of your knees, and before you know it, you are dancing. I dance the farmer from behind his plow, the boy from his game, and the girl with her swings. The world whirls around you as you dance to invisible music. Hey, Michelle. Michelle, I am pulling fairy magic cards, which are these storytelling cards. If you would like for me to pull one for you, let me know and I'll do it. So these cards are pretty cool. And the reason yes, okay, Michelle. All right, your card is the fairy godmother. So these are storytelling cards. They're not necessarily oracle cards. I think they are designed for children. And I suggested that we could use them as journal writing prompts, but you can use them for whatever you want. Um, and I'll read you a little bit from the book. The The fairy godmother keywords are comfort, help, and magical protection. I am the one who will give protection when parents cannot. Be assured that everyone has their own fairy godmother, though not everyone knows how to contact her. When you are feeling sad and sorry, I bring comfort and listen to your side of the story. So that is Michelle said I am a child. Yes, I am also a child. We all are really. I think that's the big secret that about life is that we just have these bodies that keep aging, but we're all children inside. So the reason I thought about bringing these particular cards out, these fairy magic cards, is because of the last chapter of Cosmic Heart that I released was about fairies and elementals, and um, something that's interesting to me personally about that is that throughout all of my spiritual explorations and things that I've um, talked about and written about and done online or in classes, that's always a resistance point. That whenever it seems like a lot of people are better able to accept the possibility of other kinds of spiritual energy, like angels or spirit guides or what have you. But a lot of people draw the line at fairies, like, no, fairy is not real. And I think it might be because of the association with childhood and fairy tales and that image of the little pixie, the Tinkerbell kind of image that we just associate that with fiction. But to me, um, those experiences that I've had with elementals, with like connecting with elemental spirits or what we call fairies or the fae, those have been my most real and undeniable spiritual experiences. There's no other explanation. Like the contact that I've had has been very, very real and solid, physical. Um, and to me, it just logically makes sense. Like, if there is a spirit realm, why would there not be nature spirits? Why would there not be fairies? Of course there are. Um, One thing that, like, I think of energy like layers of frequency, and that I think of the fae or the elemental spirits as being in a frequency that is closer to us as earthlings, like closer than, say, an angelic frequency or some other sort of spiritual entity. Like sometimes there are spiritual entities that vibrate on this frequency that's very, very different from human. And it causes us, I think, sometimes to have weird communication. But I think fairies are closer because they're of the earth and we're of the earth. It's an earthling thing, right? Um, I'm not pagan, but I think of myself as being sort of pagan adjacent. So I don't follow the wheel of the year, but I do love Beltane. And I know if you're watching this and you're not American, you probably pronounce that word differently. But I love the Beltane fire festivals and I love the idea of Beltane, and I do always celebrate it in some way. And I love the lore around Beltane, that that is a day when we're a little bit closer to the elementals, when we're a little bit closer to the world of the fairies and nature spirit. And that's coming up May 1st. Um, I heard someone describing the fire festivals as being sympathetic magic, that the sun has reappeared, the sun is in the sky, and so we build fire on the earth to mirror the sun in the sky. And I really love that. I just thought that was very poetic and beautiful. So I don't know what I'll do for Beltane this year, but something. I usually do something. Um, yeah. So what's up with you? do, do, do you also keep uh, notes of things that you just want to talk about? I don't know if any of you have read that chapter, if you had any thoughts about it or questions about it. So I'll just keep on talking about my notes. Oh, well, we should talk about the dreams, right? The hip dreams. I think everybody who's here right now knows about that. Yes, I know, Michelle, you did give thought, and that point that Michelle, I hope you don't mind if I say this, like there's a point where I'm talking about my and you have to keep in mind that this was years ago, but my trip to Wales, that I went to this fairy retreat in Wales. I was the only American there. And there was something that I said, and you have to kind of go look at it in the context of the piece, was that one of the concerns that I had was that I didn't want to uh, take things that didn't belong to me. And Michelle was asking me, like, what did I mean by that? Like, that it didn't belong to me. Why doesn't it belong to me? And the I think I'm not really good at communicating what I mean by that. But it's something that, I grew up in the 80s. I was a young person in the 90s. No one ever talked about cultural appropriation. We just did it. We just culturally appropriated. We just took anything we wanted. Like, oh, I see a little thing over here I like. I'm going to incorporate that. I see a little thing over here. And we didn't really talk about things being closed practices, or something that just doesn't really belong to me as a white person. And so that is something that I became very aware of, going forward in my spiritual explorations. And the fairy thing in particular, you know, because fairies are nature based, they are regional. Like, we have different types of nature spirit here in Kentucky than you would have in California, than you would have in Wales, or what have you. And I remember before going on that trip, um, there was a lot of online discussion about, because I was in some forums and groups and things, people were talking about that people would get really mad and hostile almost about doctrine, really. Like, someone would say, this is how you have to work with fairies, or this, you should do this or you should not do that. And then someone else would pipe in and say, well, no, I don't believe that, and you should do this and you should do that. And so really what I meant by that comment about not taking what doesn't belong to me is, I went into that setting with the full understanding that I am a white person who is born and raised in the United States. I have read about Welsh fairies, but I'm not Welsh. And it doesn't matter that maybe my ancestors were, I am not. And so I was there to listen and to learn and to not assert myself or my opinions. I wanted to be immersed into that world and listen to people who grew up in these fairy traditions, people for who were taught and learned about that particular ecology, um, with an open. I wanted to be a listener, not a speaker, I guess is what I meant by that, by not taking what doesn't belong to me. Um, these days in my life, I do think that looking at ancestral history, like thinking about lineage and um like where do I come from beyond this, going back. I think that is a really interesting way to approach spirituality. Um, there, there's only so much that we can know about that, but I think it is a way to steer clear of cultural appropriation by looking at one's own ancestral history and thinking like what's in my DNA, like what has come energetically through my family or my lineage that I can consider and think about now. um it's an interest, I think it's a tough kind of topic sometimes because we have to be really honest with ourselves and like I think about, for instance, in the 90s I thought bindies were really cool looking, and I just had sheets of them that I would stick onto my forehead because I loved them. And I wasn't thinking about that's where does that come from, and is that something that culturally belongs to me? No, that is not something that culturally belongs to me. And eh, the thing I do now basically is I Google everything. Like if something catches my attention or catches my eye that that I'm attracted to or that I want to have in my life or explore or practice, I just Google it. Like, is it a closed practice? Is there a group of people telling me not to do it, asking me not to do it, saying this is ours, this is religious or it's cultural, and um we would prefer that white people not do it, then I don't do it. And it's like that's like really it, but I mean that in like a very grounded physical way that I Google it. Like I just look because I don't, because some things aren't closed. There are like a lot of really cool spiritual practices and ideas and things that are open for anybody who wants to engage with them. Let me read this comment. Uh, you don't believe that what's always right. Don't believe in reincarnation, so I respect everything, but I don't think they're always right. Um, um, I don't know what. Can you, can you tell me what you mean by what you don't buy into? Um, like the different lore. Um, mhm. So I think that there's a difference between learning from someone. Like if you go, like I said, I think this is difficult. I think this is a difficult, it's murky and it's complex. I personally want to always err on the side of not crossing boundaries, personally, just for me. But I do think there's a difference between if you are studying with someone, if you're learning with someone, if someone has taken you on as a student and is sharing their culture with you or is sharing this um, That's different than just going about the world, kind of skimming along the surface and taking what we want. Um, you can't hear me? Oh, can you hear me now? What I was saying is that I think this issue is really complex. And for me personally, I'm always going to err on the side of not crossing boundaries. But that's for me personally. I'm not putting that on anyone else. But I do think that there's a difference between learning with someone, studying with someone, as someone has taken you on as a student and they're going to teach from their culture to you. That's different than if I just was going around skimming along the surface of things and delving into things that I don't really understand and that don't really belong to me and just kind of taking them on as my own. I just think there's a difference between those two things. Um, and there is a lot of discussion around this topic that like for instance, I know there are a lot of people who think that Reiki, like the practice of Reiki, is cultural appropriation. I don't see it that way. I understand why some people see it that way, but Reiki is this system. It's a system for approaching something and talking about something that we all have the ability to do. You don't need to go to a Reiki class. You don't need to be attuned to Reiki. You can channel healing energy. It's a human quality. We all can do it. But Reiki was this system that was created to put language around that. It was created in Japan by a Japanese person. It was taught and then it was intentionally brought to the West. And so the person who brought it to the West intentionally taught this system to Westerners who taught it to other Westerners. So, in my mind, it is not cultural appropriation because it was intentionally taught. It is also not religious. It also does not come from indigenous culture. It was created, it was invented by someone who happened to be Japanese. So that's what kind of what I mean about the complexity. And um I know people who teach in all kinds of different traditions, who do teach religious and indigenous traditions to non-indigenous people. um I just think there's a difference between being invited into that space and learning and really learning and engaging and taking that on and just kind of surface level, I'm just going to do this thing because I like it or because I'm attracted to it. I don't know how I got on this topic. Mm, yeah. I remember, if you're reading the Cosmic Heart, then you know that um a lot of the heart of the narrative is about the time that I spent really dedicated to religious practice and going to church. And I remember the first class that I was in. I did this thing when I was in church called EFM. It's called Education for Ministry, and it's a theological study, a history of the church, and then biblical study, but it's not like Bible study. Like Bible study is more for like affirming belief. EFM was more like breaking belief apart. And so it was super, super interesting. But anyway, I remember the first class, the first EFM class, that one of the other people in the class who was a cradle Episcopalian had gone to church their whole life, never endeavored into any other sort of spiritual way of knowing. They were church. This person said, I can't stand it when people say that they are spiritual but not religious because, um, wait a minute. Oh, don't, no, I'm glad you brought it up. You are supposed to bring things up, of course. Thanks for being here. And yes, this will be available later. Mm. These are always videos that you can watch later. Um, so anyway, they said, I can't stand it when people say I'm spiritual but not religious because then you're just never getting in deep to anything. And I was so offended. I remember just sitting there and being so offended by that statement. Like I wanted to just scream because I had always thought of myself as spiritual but not religious. Even as a religious person, I thought of myself as spiritual but not religious. But I think all of these years have gone by. I think I understand what that person was getting at about that true spiritual practice is always going to lead us into um, difficult, murky, complex places, right? Where you encounter the darkness, where you encounter the void, where you encounter the mystery and you can't make sense of it. Uh, um, by adopting a practice and going forward with it, you're not always going to be doing the practice when you feel good. You're not always going to be doing the practice when you feel faithful. Sometimes you're going to be doing the practice when you feel bad and when you have no faith. And I think that's what that person was trying to get at with that comment. Um, I don't know. I feel like I've digressed down this very, very complex path. I really appreciate you for coming here. I have taken to not announcing ahead of time when I'm going to do these, and so I know that when I see you show up here, I know that means that you got the email and you came on, and I just appreciate that so much. I appreciate you being here, a part of this community, and for reading. And I um, always encourage you to have to speak and ask questions or say what you want to say, and we do not have to agree. And that's never in my mind, never in my mind when I am sharing my story, my beliefs, my practices, or the things I want to talk about. It's never in my mind that you should agree with me or that you should be the same as me. Um, that would not work. It just doesn't work. We're humans. That's not how we are. I think the important piece in sharing this kind of thing is the conversation and is the fact that we come from different places and we have a different perspective and we have different outlook and we're not always going to agree, and that's great. That's as it should be. um, I think as a writer, I'm someone who, even as a fiction writer, I'm drawn toward memoir, I'm drawn toward memory, and I hope that the things I write are at least entertaining to the people who are reading them. I hope that maybe sometimes there's also something important, relevant, interesting that makes some kind of positive difference in someone's life, however small. But at the same time, that's also going to always be there for me as a writer. I mean, I think that we write, or we create, we make art, we create to know the world better and to know ourselves better. And we're often writing, I know that I am often writing into questions because I am speaking to myself. I'm speaking to a reader, but I am also speaking to my self. Oh, Carol says, I don't look at my email in time. I would love to know when you plan to come live. Oh, so okay. Um, I think what I can try to do is um do like I think that when I plan to go live, I can schedule it. And so then you would have a little time there. The reason why I don't ever say I'm going to do it then when I'm going to do it is because I don't always know that I'm going to be able to do it at that time. And so I have this idea that I'm going to do a cosmic cafe around the full moon and the new moon. But like for instance, this new moon, I couldn't do it on the actual new moon day. I had to do it today. But I will try to be better about that, about scheduling them so that everybody knows. That's a good point that we don't always get those notifications. Um, anyway, don't know how long we've been doing this. So I would be really interested to hear if you journal with the fairy magic cards and uh, let me know anything you want to let me know. I appreciate you being here in the Cosmic Cafe. I am actually drinking coffee today. Oh, I did. I don't know why I said actually, like that's something new. I drink coffee constantly. But I did at the birding festival from the herb farm. I got some golden milk powder and I made a golden milk for myself yesterday with hemp milk. And it's like turmeric and cardamom and cinnamon. It was so good. So good. I really, really, really recommend it. All right. Thank you. I love you. Thank you for staying, hanging out here with me today, being in the cafe. Thank you for being on this Substack. Thank you for reading. Um, I do truly love you. I'll see you later. Bye. Have a great day.